You know what's funny about being married to a multi-millionaire? You never actually know if you have any money. Not really. Because it's all his money, his accounts, his decisions, his control. I found that out the hard way when I filed for an emergency asset freeze on my husband's $50 million empire after discovering he'd been embezzling from his own company for 3 years. He called me the next morning, screaming, because his corporate credit card got declined at a ski resort in Aspen. Declined. Can you imagine? The great Marcus Rothschild, tech CEO, Forbes cover star, the man who built an empire from nothing, couldn't buy a cup of coffee. And you want to know the wildest part? I did that. Me. The quiet wife. The supportive partner. The woman who hadn't worked in 15 years. I froze every account, every asset, every single piece of his carefully constructed financial kingdom. And I did it to save my children from the fallout of their father's crimes. This is the story of how I went from trophy wife to whistleblower in one frozen Christmas morning. Welcome to DramaCoda. I'm about to tell you the full story of how I discovered my perfect life was built on lies, and how I burned it all down to protect the people I love most. Stay until the end, and please, rate this story 1 to 10 in the comments. I need to know if this resonates with you. My name is Diane Rothschild. Or at least, it was. For 15 years, that name meant something. It meant power. It meant security. It meant I was the wife of one of the most successful tech CEOs in America. It meant my children went to the best schools, we vacationed in the best places, and we lived in a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Which it did. Architectural Digest. Twice. But here's what that name really meant. It meant I didn't exist. Not really. I was an extension. An accessory. A beautiful, educated, perfectly groomed extension of Marcus Rothschild's success story. And I didn't even realize it until the night everything fell apart. Let me take you back to the beginning. Not the beginning of the end. The beginning of the beginning. Back when I thought I was making the smartest choice of my life. I met Marcus in 2004. I was 29 years old. I had just passed the bar. I was working at a corporate law firm in Manhattan, pulling 80-hour weeks, living on coffee and ambition, and I was good. Really good. I had just closed a major contract negotiation for a client, and my firm threw a celebration dinner. Marcus was there. He was a guest of one of the senior partners. He was 32. Already successful. Already magnetic. He had started a tech company called CipherCore that was doing something revolutionary with data storage and encryption. I didn't fully understand it then. I'm not sure I ever did. But I understood him. Or I thought I did. He was confident without being arrogant. Ambitious without being ruthless. He asked me about my work, and he actually listened. Really listened. Not the polite nodding that men usually do when a woman talks about her career. He asked follow-up questions. He remembered details. By the end of the night, he had my number. By the end of the month, we were inseparable. Marcus made me feel seen. That's the thing nobody tells you about falling in love with a successful man. It's not about the money. Not at first. It's about the attention. The focus. The way he looked at me like I was the most fascinating person in the room. And for a while, maybe I was. We got married in 2005. It was a beautiful wedding. Small. Intimate. Just family and close friends at a vineyard in Napa Valley. I wore a simple dress. He wore a gray suit. We wrote our own vows. I promised to support his dreams. He promised to build a life where I would never have to worry about anything. And he kept that promise. Sort of. I got pregnant with our first child, Ethan, 6 months after the wedding. Marcus was thrilled. He was building Cyphercore into something massive, and he wanted a family to match. He sat me down one night, held my hands, and said something I will never forget. He said, "Diane, you are brilliant. You are capable of anything. But our children deserve a mother who is fully present. Not stretched thin. Not exhausted. Not torn between a courtroom and a nursery. Let me carry the financial weight. You carry the family. Together, we'll build something extraordinary." It sounded romantic. It sounded generous. It sounded like partnership. So I said yes. I left the law firm. I stopped practicing. I became a full-time mother. And then a mother of 2 when Michael was born 2 years later. And then a mother of 3 when Charlotte arrived 2 years after that. My days became a rhythm of school drop-offs, piano lessons, soccer practice, parent-teacher conferences, meal planning, vacation scheduling, and managing a household staff that included a nanny, a housekeeper, a chef, and a driver. I was busy. I was needed. But I was not independent. And that's the thing about giving up your career for your family. It happens so slowly you don't even notice. One day you're a lawyer closing deals. The next day you're a mother reading bedtime stories. And both are important. Both are valuable. But only one of them pays you. I didn't have my own income. I had access to Marcus's income. And there's a difference. A big one. I had credit cards with my name on them, but they were linked to his accounts. I had signing authority on the household account, but it was funded by his transfers. I could spend money, but I couldn't make money. I could access wealth, but I didn't own it. And for a long time, I told myself that didn't matter. We were married. What's his was mine. What's mine was his. We were a team. A partnership. Except partnerships require equal power. And I didn't have any. I started noticing the small things first. The way Marcus would casually mention that a friend of mine was being frivolous with money. The way he would suggest I didn't really need to buy something, even if it was small. The way he controlled every major financial decision without consulting me. Not because he was cruel. Not because he was abusive. But because he could. Because I had handed him that power, wrapped in a bow, the day I stopped working. There was this one moment. I remember it so clearly. It was 2015. We'd been married 10 years. Charlotte was 5. I had a friend, Rebecca, who was starting a sustainable fashion company. She needed investors. I wanted to put in $25,000. It wasn't a life-changing amount of money for us. It was pocket change. But I asked Marcus about it because I didn't have $25,000 of my own. I had to ask. He laughed. Not a mean laugh. Just a dismissive one. He said, "Diane, all of our money is working for us already. It's in investments. It's in the company. It's not just sitting in a bank account waiting to be spent on your friend's little fashion project. If you want to support her, write her a check for $1,000 and call it a Christmas gift. But we're not investors. I'm the investor. You're the wife. I'm the investor. You're the wife." That sentence sat in my chest like a stone. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. I wrote Rebecca a check for $1,000 and told her I believed in her but couldn't invest right now. She understood. But I don't think I did. Not yet. The years kept passing. Marcus kept succeeding. Ciphercore kept growing. We bought the house in Greenwich. A sprawling Tudor mansion with 8 bedrooms, a pool, a tennis court, and grounds that required a full-time gardener. We bought the summer home in the Hamptons. We started taking the kind of vacations that required a private plane. Aspen for Christmas. Monaco in the summer. Tokyo in the spring. The kids went to the best private schools in Connecticut. Ethan was being groomed for the Ivy League. Michael was a math prodigy. Charlotte was fearless and funny and the light of my life. From the outside, we were perfect. From the inside, I was disappearing. And I didn't even know it. Marcus was on the cover of Forbes in 2018. The article called him a visionary. A disruptor. The next Steve Jobs. He gave the magazine a tour of our home. They photographed me in the kitchen with the kids, laughing, baking cookies. The caption said, "Behind every great man is a great woman." I smiled for the camera. I played the part. But when I read that caption, I felt sick. Because I wasn't behind him. I was beneath him. And still, I stayed. Because leaving felt impossible. Where would I go? What would I do? I hadn't worked in over a decade. My resume was a graveyard. My professional network had moved on without me. My law license was still active, but I hadn't touched a legal document in years. I had 3 children who loved their father and loved their life. I had a marriage that looked perfect to everyone who mattered. And most importantly, I had no money of my own. That's the trap. That's the thing nobody tells you about financial dependence. It's not about love. It's not about trust. It's about power. And when one person controls all the resources, they control all the choices. Even if they never say it out loud. Even if they're kind about it. The power is still there. And you feel it every single day. Christmas 2024. That's when everything changed. We always went to Aspen for Christmas. It was our tradition. The first year we went, we stayed in a cozy hotel suite and drank hot chocolate by the fire. By the 15th year, we were renting a 7,000 square foot chalet that cost more per week than most people earn in a year. It had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the mountains. It had a chef's kitchen. It had a private movie theater. It had heated floors and a hot tub and a Christmas tree so big it took 4 people to decorate it. The kids loved it. Ethan was 14 now. Tall. Serious. He looked exactly like Marcus. He spent most of his time reading or skiing the Black Diamond runs. Michael was 12. Quieter. Thoughtful. He brought his chess set and his laptop and spent hours building code for fun. Charlotte was 10. Wild. Joyful. She made friends with every kid on the mountain and came home every night with stories that made us laugh until we cried. Marcus was different that year. I noticed it the moment we arrived. He was distracted. Tense. He kept taking phone calls in the middle of dinner. He disappeared into the office annex of the chalet for hours at a time. He snapped at the kids over small things. He barely looked at me. When I asked him what was wrong, he said he was just tired. Just stressed. Just dealing with year-end business. I believed him. Or I wanted to. Because the alternative was too scary to consider. Christmas Eve. The kids were downstairs decorating gingerbread men. I could hear them laughing. Charlotte was arguing with Michael about whether gingerbread men should have 3 buttons or 4. Ethan was playing referee. It was the kind of moment that makes you grateful. The kind of moment you want to bottle up and keep forever. I was upstairs wrapping presents. I had bought Marcus a custom watch winder. It was sleek. Expensive. Exactly the kind of thing he appreciated. I was sitting on the bed, carefully folding the paper, when he walked in. He looked pale. His hands were shaking. He was holding a large manila envelope. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask about the kids. He just walked over to me, handed me the envelope, and said, "I need you to do me a favor. I need you to take these documents and shred them. All of them. Before midnight." I stared at him. "What?" "Just shred them, Diane. Please. They're sensitive. I don't trust the staff here. And I need them gone tonight." I looked at the envelope. It was sealed. Thick. Heavy. What are they? Old drafts of a merger agreement that fell through. Messy. Confidential. Just destroy them. Please. He kissed me on the forehead. Too quick. Too distracted. Then he went downstairs to check on the kids. I sat there holding the envelope, my heart pounding for reasons I didn't understand yet. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. Marcus never handled documents himself. He had assistants for that. Lawyers. Staff. Why was he asking me to shred papers on Christmas Eve? Why did he look so scared? I walked into the laundry room where we kept the small office shredder. I stood there for a long time, holding the envelope, staring at the machine. And then I did something I have never done in 15 years of marriage. I broke his trust. I opened the envelope. I pulled out the stack of documents inside. And I started reading. The first page was marked confidential. Do not disclose. The second page was a spreadsheet titled Project Chimera. Q4 Fund Reallocation. The third page was a list of offshore accounts. Cayman Islands. Liechtenstein. Switzerland. The fourth page was a transaction log showing $50 million moving out of CipherCore's operational accounts over the past 3 years. $50 million. Not invested. Not reinvested. Not used for growth or development or expansion. Just gone. Siphoned off. Moved into shell corporations with names I didn't recognize. I dropped the papers. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't pick them up. I bent down. I picked them up one by one. I read every single page. And with every page, my entire life crumbled. Marcus wasn't a visionary. He was a thief. He wasn't building an empire. He was stealing from it. Every luxury we owned. Every vacation we took. Every private school tuition check. Every piece of jewelry he'd ever given me. It was all stolen. All of it. $50 million. Embezzled. Hidden. Laundered. And I was living in a palace built on fraud. I sat down on the floor of the laundry room. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. The sound of the kids laughing downstairs felt like it was coming from another universe. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But it was. The evidence was in my hands. Spreadsheets. Transaction logs. Account numbers. Shell corporations. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't aggressive accounting. This was deliberate. Systematic. Criminal. And the worst part? I had no idea. None. For 3 years, Marcus had been stealing millions of dollars, and I was completely clueless. Because I didn't ask questions. Because I didn't have access. Because I was the wife, not the investor. Because I had traded my independence for security, and now that security was about to evaporate. I shoved the documents back into the envelope. I hid it in my overnight bag. Under my pajamas. Under my toiletries. I zipped the bag closed. My hands were still shaking. My mind was racing. What do I do? What do I do? If I shred the documents, I'm complicit. If I confront Marcus, he'll lie. He'll manipulate. He'll convince me I'm overreacting. If I go to the authorities, I destroy my husband. I destroy my children's father. I destroy our family. But if I do nothing, we all go down with him. Because this kind of fraud doesn't stay hidden. It gets discovered. It gets prosecuted. And when it does, everything we own will be seized. Every account frozen. Every asset liquidated. We'll lose the house. The cars. The savings. The college funds. Everything. My children will go from private school to poverty in a single news cycle. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. I went back downstairs. I smiled. I laughed. I helped the kids finish decorating their gingerbread men. I tucked them into bed. I read Charlotte a story. I kissed Ethan and Michael goodnight. And the entire time, I felt like I was floating outside my body, watching someone else play the role of the perfect mother. Because inside, I was drowning. Inside, I was screaming. Marcus came to bed late. He wrapped his arms around me. He whispered, "Thank you for taking care of those documents. I love you." I didn't say anything. I just closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. But I didn't sleep. Not for a single second. Christmas morning. The kids woke up at 6. They ran downstairs to open presents. Marcus and I followed. We drank coffee. We watched them tear through wrapping paper. We took photos. We smiled. We played the part. And then Marcus pulled out a small box and handed it to me. "Open it," he said. "You're going to love it." I opened it. Inside was an emerald necklace. Stunning. The kind of piece that makes you gasp. The kind of piece that costs more than most people earn in a year. He put it around my neck. He kissed me. The kids oohed and awed. And all I could think about was the $50 million. All I could think about was how this necklace was probably bought with stolen money. All I could think about was how I was wearing evidence of a crime. Later that afternoon, while Marcus was outside showing the boys how to fly a new drone he'd bought them, I made a decision. I couldn't talk to my friends. They wouldn't understand. I couldn't talk to my parents. They worshipped Marcus. They thought he walked on water. I needed someone who understood the law. Someone who understood white-collar crime. Someone who could tell me what to do. I pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my old contacts. Most of them were outdated. Old colleagues from the law firm who had probably forgotten I existed. But there was one name I recognized. Tom Fletcher. He worked for the SEC's Enforcement Division. We'd crossed paths years ago on a case. He was dry. Serious. Honest. I called him. He answered on the third ring. Tom, I said. It's Diane Rothschild. I need to ask you a hypothetical question. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Diane. It's been a long time. What's going on? I kept my voice low. I was standing by the window, watching Marcus laugh with the kids outside. I said, if someone had information about corporate embezzlement. Significant amounts. Offshore accounts. Shell corporations. What would be the process for reporting it? Anonymously. There was a long pause. Then he said, Diane. Are we talking about Cipher Core? I didn't answer. He sighed. Okay. Listen to me carefully. If you have evidence of embezzlement involving tens of millions of dollars and a publicly traded company, this is not a small issue. This is a career-ending, company-destroying, potentially criminal case. You need a lawyer. Not a corporate lawyer. You need someone who specializes in white-collar crime defense and complex asset protection. And you need to be prepared to lose everything. Your marriage. Your lifestyle. Your reputation. Because when you blow the whistle on your own husband, he will fight back. Hard. I closed my eyes. What if I don't report it? What if I just stay quiet? Tom's voice got very serious. Then you become complicit. And when it all comes out, and it will come out, you'll be investigated too. Your assets will be frozen. Your children's trust funds could be seized. You'll spend years trying to prove you didn't know. And even if you succeed, you'll still lose everything. Because the money is tainted. All of it. If you want to protect your kids, you report it. You cooperate. And you get ahead of the disaster before it buries you. I thanked him. I hung up. I stood there for a long time, watching Marcus play with our children, and I realized something. I wasn't just protecting them from their father's crimes. I was protecting them from their father. Because the man I married wouldn't have done this. The man I married wouldn't have stolen $50 million and asked me to destroy the evidence. The man I married was gone. And in his place was a stranger. A criminal. A liar. That night, I didn't sleep in the master bedroom. I told Marcus I had a migraine. I took my overnight bag and went to the guest room. And I spent the entire night photographing every single document in that manila envelope. Every page. Every spreadsheet. Every transaction log. Every account number. I used my phone. I uploaded everything to a brand new email account I created just for this purpose. An account Marcus would never find. An account that would be my insurance policy. My evidence. My weapon. By the time the sun came up, I had made my decision. I was going to file for divorce. I was going to freeze the assets. I was going to cooperate with the SEC. I was going to become a whistleblower. Not because I wanted to destroy Marcus. But because I had to save my children. And myself. The next morning, I told Marcus I was taking the kids home early. He looked relieved. Actually relieved. That hurt more than anything. He was happy to have us out of the way so he could clean up his mess. So he could cover his tracks. So he could lie to more people. I packed our bags. I loaded the kids into the car. I drove to the airport. And I didn't look back. As soon as we landed in Connecticut, I started executing my plan. I didn't go home. Not right away. I dropped the kids off with my sister, told her I needed a few days to handle some business, and I drove straight to New York City. I needed a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The best lawyer. Someone who could go head to head with Marcus's entire legal team and win. I went to a library. I used a public computer. I didn't use my phone or my laptop because I didn't know if Marcus was monitoring them. I searched for the best white-collar crime defense attorneys in New York. The same name kept coming up again and again. David Sloan. He had represented CEOs, politicians, whistleblowers. He had a reputation for being ruthless, strategic, and completely unflappable. I called his office. I told his assistant I needed an emergency consultation. She said he was booked for weeks. I said, "Tell him it's about Cipher Core and Marcus Rothschild." She put me on hold. 2 minutes later, she came back and said, "He can see you tomorrow morning at 8. I didn't sleep that night either. I stayed in a hotel in Manhattan. I went over everything in my head. Every document. Every transaction. Every lie. By the time I walked into David Sloan's office the next morning, I was exhausted. Terrified. But also strangely calm. Because I knew what I had to do. David Sloan was not what I expected. He was in his early 50s. Quiet. Serious. He didn't have the flashy office or the expensive art or the ego that I associated with high-powered attorneys. His office was understated. Professional. Safe. He shook my hand. He offered me coffee. He sat down across from me and said, "Mrs. Rothschild. Tell me everything." So I did. I told him about the manila envelope. I told him about the documents. I told him about the $50 million. I told him about the offshore accounts and the shell corporations and Marcus's panic and the phone call to Tom Fletcher and the sleepless nights and the emerald necklace and the fear and the rage and the absolute terror of realizing that my entire life was built on fraud. When I was finished, I pulled out the USB drive with all the photos. I placed it on his desk. I said, "I want to file for divorce. I want to freeze all the assets before Marcus can move them or hide them. And I want to cooperate with the SEC under the whistleblower program. But I have 2 conditions. 1, my children's future has to be protected. 2, I need to file for divorce and secure an asset freeze before any of this becomes public. Can you do that?" David looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "Mrs. Rothschild. You are about to become the center of a media firestorm. Your husband will fight you with every resource he has. He will try to destroy your reputation. He will paint you as a gold digger, a liar, a criminal. You will be investigated. You will be deposed. You will lose friends. You will lose your social circle. Your children will see their father go to prison. And through all of it, you will have to stand firm. You will have to be stronger than you have ever been in your entire life. Are you ready for that?" I didn't hesitate. I said, "For my children, I'm ready." David nodded. "Then let's go to war." The strategy David laid out was brilliant and terrifying. We had to move fast. Faster than Marcus could react. Faster than he could delete files or move money or destroy evidence. We had less than a week to execute the entire plan. Step 1 was filing an emergency motion for an asset freeze. David drafted a sealed motion in family court, citing Marcus's imminent exposure to criminal liability as a direct threat to marital and child assets. He used the documents I had photographed, not revealing their full source yet, just enough to show the judge there was clear evidence of financial malfeasance and a serious risk of asset flight. The judge reviewed the motion in chambers. She asked me questions. She asked David questions. And then she granted a temporary, immediate freeze on every major account, every property, every corporate share, and every liquid asset in the Rothschild name. Everything. Frozen. Effective immediately. Marcus found out the next morning. He was still in Aspen. He tried to use his corporate card to pay for a ski lift pass. Declined. He tried his personal card. Declined. He tried the backup card. Declined. Every single card, every single account, locked. Inaccessible. He called me 30 seconds later. I let it ring. He called again. I answered. His voice was shaking with rage. What the hell have you done, Diane? What the hell is going on? My cards are frozen. My accounts are frozen. What did you do? I kept my voice calm. Steady. Cold. I said, Marcus, I know about Project Chimera. I have the documents. I have the spreadsheets. I have the account numbers. I have everything. And I have filed for divorce. And I have frozen the assets. And if you do not cooperate, I will hand everything over to the SEC today. Not tomorrow. Today. Silence. Total silence. I could hear him breathing. I could hear the panic. Then he said, "You have no idea what you're doing. You're destroying our family. You're destroying the kids' future. You're destroying everything." I said, "No, Marcus. You destroyed it. You stole $50 million. You committed fraud. You lied to me for 3 years. You asked me to destroy evidence. I am not destroying our family. I am protecting it. From you." I hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. But I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just sat there, staring at my phone, knowing that I had just declared war on the most powerful person in my life. The next 3 months were hell. Marcus hired a team of lawyers. Expensive, aggressive, ruthless lawyers. They filed motions. They demanded depositions. They accused me of theft, of extortion, of illegally accessing privileged documents. They painted me as a vindictive wife trying to destroy a successful husband out of jealousy. They leaked stories to the press. Stories about me. About my shopping habits. About my lifestyle. About how I was a gold digger who married for money and was now trying to take everything in a divorce. The media ate it up. Suddenly, I was on page 6. I was on TMZ. I was trending on Twitter. People I had never met had opinions about me. About my marriage. About my motives. The comments were vicious. They called me a liar. A fraud. A leech. They said I was just another trophy wife who wanted revenge. They said I should be grateful Marcus gave me such a good life. They said I was destroying a great man over a misunderstanding. But I had something they didn't. The truth. And David Sloan knew exactly how to use it. While Marcus was fighting me in divorce court, David was quietly building a case with the SEC. He handed over copies of the documents. He walked them through the transactions. He showed them the offshore accounts and the shell corporations and the systematic theft that had been happening for 3 years. And the SEC opened a formal investigation. Not a preliminary inquiry. A full investigation. With subpoenas. With forensic accountants. With criminal referrals. Marcus's stock price started dropping. CipherCore's board started asking questions. His investors started panicking. And suddenly, Marcus had two battles. He was fighting me in divorce court. And he was fighting the federal government in criminal court. He couldn't win both. He had to choose. David used that pressure like a weapon. He went to Marcus's lawyers with an offer. Settle the divorce on our terms, or we turn over the original source documents to the SEC, accelerating the criminal proceedings and guaranteeing maximum penalties. We give Marcus a chance to plea bargain. We give him a chance to cooperate. But only if he settles the divorce first. Only if he gives me everything I'm asking for. Marcus's lawyers fought it. They said it was extortion. They said it was blackmail. They said it was illegal. But David had covered every angle. Everything we were doing was legal. Everything we were offering was fair. And most importantly, everything we had was real. The documents were real. The theft was real. The fraud was real. Marcus was guilty. And everyone knew it. It took 2 months of brutal negotiations. 2 months of depositions and court hearings and media attacks and sleepless nights. But in the end, Marcus broke. He couldn't keep fighting both battles. He couldn't save his company and his freedom and his marriage. He had to choose. So he chose to try and save himself. He agreed to the settlement. The divorce settlement was more than I ever imagined. I got primary physical custody of the children. I got the Greenwich house. I got substantial alimony and child support, structured in a way that protected the kids' future no matter what happened to Marcus. I got a lump sum payment from the liquid assets that had been frozen, enough to ensure I would never have to ask Marcus for permission to spend money ever again. And most importantly, I got independence. Full, complete, financial independence. But that wasn't all. Because I had cooperated with the SEC under the whistleblower program, I was entitled to a percentage of any fines or penalties collected from the enforcement action. And when the SEC finished their investigation, they fined Cipher Corp and Marcus personally over $200 million. My share? $15 million. $15 million for doing the right thing. For turning in a criminal. For protecting my children. For choosing truth over loyalty. Marcus eventually pled guilty to securities fraud and embezzlement. He was sentenced to 5 years in a minimum security federal prison. He served 3.5. Cipher Corp was restructured. The board forced him out. His reputation was destroyed. His career was over. And I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Just relief. Because my children were safe. Because I was safe. Because we had survived. But here's the thing about surviving. It's not the same as thriving. I had money. I had security. I had freedom. But I didn't have purpose. I was 44 years old. I hadn't worked in almost 20 years. I didn't know who I was anymore. I was Diane Rothschild. But Marcus Rothschild was gone. And I didn't know how to be just Diane. The first year after the divorce was strange. I stayed in the Greenwich house with the kids. We tried to create a new normal. A normal without Marcus. A normal without the chaos and the fear and the lies. Ethan struggled the most. He was angry. He felt betrayed. Not by Marcus. By me. He blamed me for turning his father in. He blamed me for destroying our family. We went to therapy. Family therapy. Individual therapy. It helped. Slowly. But it was hard. So hard. Michael retreated into himself. He spent hours coding, building apps, losing himself in logic and algorithms. He didn't want to talk about Marcus. He didn't want to talk about the trial or the prison sentence or any of it. He just wanted to pretend it never happened. So I let him. I gave him space. I gave him time. Charlotte was the most resilient. She was only 10 when it all happened. She didn't fully understand the details. She just knew that Daddy did something bad and now Daddy was gone. She missed him. She asked about him. But she also adapted. She made new friends. She found new hobbies. She leaned into life with a fearlessness that made me both proud and heartbroken. As for me, I was lost. I had everything I needed. But I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to be a single mother. I didn't know how to be financially independent. I didn't know how to rebuild a life from scratch. So I did what I always did. I threw myself into something. I threw myself into helping other women. Women like me. Women who had traded their careers for security. Women who had given up their financial independence for love. Women who were trapped. Women who needed a way out. I went back to David Sloan. Not as a client. As a partner. I said, David, I want to start a foundation. I want to use the whistleblower money to help women who are in the same situation I was in. Women who are financially dependent on abusive or criminal partners. Women who want to leave but don't know how. Women who need legal support and financial education and career resources. Can you help me do that? David looked at me with something I hadn't seen before. Respect. Pride. He said, Diane, I think that's the best idea I've heard in years. Let's do it. We started the Chimera Project Foundation. Named after the scheme that almost destroyed me but ultimately saved me. The foundation provides 3 things. Legal funding for women in complex, high-asset divorces where abuse or financial malfeasance is involved. Financial literacy education to help women understand their rights and their resources. And career re-entry programs to help women get back into the workforce after years away. We partnered with law firms, financial advisors, career coaches, therapists. We built a network. A community. A safety net. The work was healing. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a purpose. I wasn't just Marcus Rothschild's ex-wife. I wasn't just a whistleblower. I wasn't just a victim who survived. I was a woman who was using her pain to help others. I was a woman who was building something meaningful. Something lasting. Something good. And through all of it, David was there. Not as my lawyer. As my partner. My friend. And eventually, something more. David Sloan was everything Marcus wasn't. He was quiet where Marcus was loud. He was steady where Marcus was volatile. He was honest where Marcus was manipulative. He respected me where Marcus had controlled me. He saw me as an equal where Marcus had seen me as an accessory. And most importantly, he never made me feel like I needed him. He made me feel like I was choosing him. There's a difference. A huge difference. We started slowly. Coffee meetings about the foundation turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long conversations about life and loss and what it means to rebuild after everything falls apart. He told me about his own divorce. A quiet, painful ending to a marriage that had been dying for years. He told me about his daughter, who was in college now, who he adored but rarely saw. He told me about the loneliness of being good at your job but terrible at relationships. And I told him about the shame of being financially dependent. About the guilt of destroying my children's father. About the fear that I would never be more than the woman who turned in her husband. He listened. Really listened. Not the way Marcus used to listen, which was performative and distracted. But the way someone listens when they actually care about your answer. When they actually see you as a full person, not just a problem to solve or a story to tell. It took almost 2 years before we went on an actual date. 2 years of working together and talking and slowly, carefully, building something that felt real and safe and honest. Our first date was nothing fancy. We went to a small Italian restaurant in the city. We split a bottle of wine. We talked for hours. And at the end of the night, when he walked me to my car, he didn't try to kiss me. He just held my hand. And that was enough. More than enough. It was perfect. The kids met him 6 months later. I was terrified. Ethan was 16 now. Still angry. Still protective of Marcus's memory, even though Marcus was in prison. I didn't know how he would react to me dating someone. Especially someone who had helped me put his father away. But David was patient. He didn't try to be their father. He didn't try to replace Marcus. He just showed up. He asked Ethan about his college applications. He played chess with Michael. He took Charlotte to see a Broadway show she'd been dying to see. He didn't push. He didn't force. He just existed in our lives, steady and kind, until the kids started to trust him. Charlotte fell in love with him first. She called him David the nice lawyer. Michael warmed up next. He appreciated David's quiet intelligence, his respect for boundaries, his genuine interest in Michael's coding projects. Ethan took the longest. But eventually, even Ethan came around. I think it happened the day David sat him down and said, "Your dad made terrible choices. But he loved you." Those two things can both be true. You don't have to choose between loving your father and respecting your mother. You're allowed to feel complicated things. That's what makes you human. Ethan cried that day. Really cried. For the first time since the divorce. And David just sat with him. Didn't try to fix it. Didn't try to make it better. Just sat with him in the pain. That's when I knew. I knew David was the real thing. We got engaged 2.5 years after the divorce was finalized. It wasn't a grand gesture. There was no elaborate proposal. We were sitting in his apartment on a Sunday morning, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper, and he just looked at me and said, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Not because I need you. But because I choose you. Every single day. Will you marry me?" I said yes before he even finished the question. We got married the following Christmas. It was small. Intimate. Just the kids, a few close friends, and David's daughter, who flew in from California. We got married in a tiny chapel in Vermont. I wore a simple cream-colored dress. David wore a navy suit. The kids stood up with us. Ethan walked me down the aisle. Charlotte was my maid of honor. Michael was David's best man. It was quiet and perfect and nothing like my first wedding. There was no vineyard. No fancy venue. No photographers. No performance. Just love. Real, honest, complicated, beautiful love. We honeymooned in Aspen. I know. I know how that sounds. Going back to the place where everything fell apart. But it was David's idea. He said, "We're going to take that place back. We're going to make new memories. We're going to prove that the past doesn't own us." So we went. We rented a small cabin. Nothing fancy. Nothing extravagant. Just a cozy, warm, quiet place with a view of the mountains and a fireplace and a Christmas tree that we decorated together. On Christmas morning, David gave me a gift. It was a small silver locket. Simple. Understated. Beautiful. Inside was a photo. Not of us. Not of him. But of me and the kids. The four of us, laughing, from the day we celebrated the finalization of the divorce. The day we became a family on our own terms. He said, "This is what security looks like, Diane. Not a mansion. Not a bank account. Not a piece of jewelry. This. The people you love. The life you built. The strength you found. That's the only security that matters. That's the only security that lasts." I cried. Happy tears. Relieved tears. Healing tears. Because he was right. For 15 years, I thought security meant money. I thought security meant being taken care of. I thought security meant never having to worry. But real security isn't something someone gives you. It's something you build yourself. It's knowing you can survive. Knowing you can stand on your own. Knowing you have value, not because of who you're married to, but because of who you are. That's the lesson. That's the thing I wish I could go back and tell my 29-year-old self, the girl who thought giving up her career was a smart choice. The girl who thought financial dependence was the same as love. The girl who thought being taken care of meant being safe. Financial dependence is not love. It's leverage. And leverage, in the wrong hands, is a weapon. I learned that the hard way. But I learned it. And now I want to make sure other women don't have to learn it the same way I did. So here's what I want you to understand. Here's what I need you to hear. You do not have to be married to a criminal CEO to be at risk. You do not have to be in an abusive relationship to be vulnerable. Financial dependence is dangerous, even in good relationships. Even in loving relationships. Even in partnerships where both people have the best intentions. Because life is unpredictable. People change. Circumstances change. And if you don't have your own financial identity, your own resources, your own safety net, you are one bad decision away from losing everything. I'm not saying don't be a stay-at-home parent. I'm not saying don't take time off to raise your kids. I'm not saying careers are more important than family. I'm saying you need to protect yourself while you do it. You need to maintain financial independence, even if it's small. Even if it's just an account in your own name with a few $100s. Even if it's just keeping your professional license active. Even if it's just staying connected to your network. Even if it's just knowing where the money is and how it's invested and what the tax returns say. You need to know the numbers. All of them. You need to have access to the accounts. All of them. You need to have copies of the important documents. All of them. You need to have a plan for what you would do if everything fell apart. Because it might. And if it does, you need to be able to save yourself. You need to be able to save your kids. You cannot rely on someone else to do it for you. I call it the FU fund. It's the money that gives you the power to say no. The power to leave. The power to stand on your own 2 feet if you need to. It doesn't have to be a lot. It just has to be yours. Your name. Your control. Your safety net. And if your partner has a problem with you having that, if they question it or criticize it or try to control it, that's a red flag. That's a warning sign. That's leverage being used against you. I also want to talk about something nobody discusses. The shame. The embarrassment of admitting you were financially dependent. The humiliation of realizing you didn't know what was going on in your own household. The guilt of feeling like you should have known, you should have seen the signs, you should have been smarter. I felt all of that. I still feel some of it. But I've learned something important. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't my failure. I made choices based on the information I had and the person I thought Marcus was. I trusted my partner. That's not a weakness. That's what you're supposed to do in a marriage. The failure was his, not mine. He lied. He stole. He manipulated. He broke my trust. I didn't break anything. I survived. And if you're in a situation right now where you're realizing you don't have financial independence, where you're realizing you're vulnerable, where you're realizing you need to make changes, please hear me. It's not too late. It's never too late. Start small. Open an account in your own name. Put a little money in it every month, even if it's just $20. Get copies of the tax returns. Get copies of the insurance policies. Get copies of the investment statements. Know what you have. Know what you owe. Know what your options are. And if you need help, ask for it. Find a lawyer. Find a financial advisor. Find a therapist. Find a friend. Find a foundation like ours. You are not alone. You are not trapped. You have options. You have value. You have worth. The Chimera Project Foundation has helped over 300 women in the past 3 years. Some of them were in situations like mine. High net worth divorces. Financial malfeasance. Criminal activity. But most of them weren't. Most of them were just ordinary women in ordinary relationships who realized they were vulnerable. They were stay-at-home moms who didn't have their own income. They were part-time workers whose spouses controlled all the finances. They were women who had put their careers on hold and didn't know how to get back in. They were women who were scared and confused and didn't know where to start. We helped them start. We gave them legal funding. We gave them financial education. We gave them career coaching. We gave them confidence. And we gave them community. A network of women who understood. Who had been there. Who had survived. Who were thriving. Because that's the other side of this story. It's not just about surviving. It's about thriving. It's about building a life that is authentically yours. Not someone else's idea of what your life should be. Not a life that looks good on paper. But a life that feels good in your soul. I'm 50 years old now. My kids are grown. Ethan is in college. He's studying economics, which is ironic and beautiful. He wants to work in financial regulation. He wants to make sure what happened to our family doesn't happen to others. Michael is 17. He's already got scholarship offers from MIT and Stanford. He's building apps that help people manage their money and understand their finances. He turned his pain into purpose, just like I did. Charlotte is 15. She's fierce and fearless and wants to be a lawyer like me. Like David. She says she wants to help people who can't help themselves. I cry every time she says it. Because I know she will. I know she's going to change the world. And me? I run the foundation. I speak at conferences. I write articles. I help women navigate the complicated, terrifying process of leaving relationships where they've been financially dependent. I help them rebuild. I help them reclaim their power. I help them find themselves again. And every single time I do it, I heal a little more. I become a little stronger. I become a little more sure that everything I went through, all the pain and the fear and the chaos, was worth it. Because it led me here. To this life. To this purpose. To this version of myself that I'm actually proud of. David and I are happy. Really happy. Not perfect. Marriage is never perfect. But honest. Respectful. Equal. We make decisions together. We share everything. We trust each other. And most importantly, we both have our own lives, our own work, our own identities. I am not David's wife. I am Diane. Who happens to be married to David. There's a difference. A massive difference. I learned that difference the hard way. But I learned it. And I will never forget it. Sometimes people ask me if I regret it. If I regret turning Marcus in. If I regret destroying my family. If I regret the media circus and the trial and the years of therapy and the pain I caused my children. And the answer is no. I don't regret it. Not for a single second. Because the alternative was watching my children grow up thinking that kind of behavior was acceptable. The alternative was teaching them that loyalty means staying silent when someone does something wrong. The alternative was showing them that money and status are more important than integrity and truth. I couldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. So I made the hard choice. The painful choice. The right choice. And I would do it again. But I also want to be clear about something. This story is not about revenge. It's not about punishing Marcus. It's not about being vindictive or bitter or angry. Yes, I was angry. Yes, I was hurt. Yes, I felt betrayed. But the decision to turn him in wasn't about hurting him. It was about protecting my children. It was about protecting myself. It was about doing the right thing, even when the right thing was the hardest thing. That's what integrity means. That's what strength means. That's what love means. Marcus got out of prison 2 years ago. He's living in Florida now. Quiet life. Low profile. He's not allowed to serve on any corporate boards. He's not allowed to work in finance. His reputation is destroyed. His career is over. But he's alive. He's free. And he has a relationship with the kids. It's complicated. It's messy. But it exists. Ethan talks to him every few weeks. Michael texts him occasionally. Charlotte sees him a few times a year. They've forgiven him, in their own ways. Not because what he did was okay. But because holding on to anger was hurting them more than it was hurting him. I'm proud of them for that. I'm proud of their capacity for compassion, even after everything. As for me and Marcus, we don't talk. There's nothing left to say. He made his choices. I made mine. And we both have to live with the consequences. I don't hate him. I don't love him. I just feel nothing. And that's the healthiest thing I could possibly feel. Because indifference means I've healed. Indifference means he doesn't have power over me anymore. Indifference means I'm free. 2 months ago, I got a call from a woman named Sarah. She was 36 years old. Married for 12 years. 3 kids. Stay-at-home mom. Her husband was a successful doctor. They lived in a beautiful house. They had everything they needed. But something felt off. She started asking questions about their finances. Her husband got defensive. Angry. He told her she didn't need to worry about money. He told her it was his job to handle it. He told her to trust him. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So she started digging. And she found out her husband had been gambling. Online poker. Sports betting. High stakes. He'd lost over $2 million in the past year. He'd taken out loans against their house. He'd emptied their retirement accounts. He'd maxed out credit cards she didn't even know existed. They were on the verge of bankruptcy. And she had no idea. She called me because she didn't know what to do. She was terrified. She was ashamed. She felt stupid for not knowing. She felt guilty for questioning her husband. She felt trapped. She said, "I don't have a job. I don't have any money. I don't have anywhere to go. What am I supposed to do?" I told her what I wish someone had told me. I said, "You're not stupid. You're not guilty. You're not trapped. You're just in a situation you didn't create and didn't expect. But you can get out. You have options. You have resources. You have us." And then I connected her with a lawyer from our network. I connected her with a financial advisor who specializes in helping women rebuild after financial abuse. I connected her with a career coach who helps stay-at-home moms get back into the workforce. And I walked her through every single step of the process. How to document everything. How to protect her kids. How to file for divorce. How to secure emergency funding. How to start over. She called me last week. She just signed her divorce papers. She got primary custody of the kids. She got the house. She got child support. She got alimony. And most importantly, she got a job. A part-time position at a nonprofit that works with at-risk youth. It's not glamorous. It doesn't pay much. But it's hers. She earned it. She built it. And she told me something I will never forget. She said, "For the first time in 12 years, I feel like a person. Not a wife. Not a mother. A person. With value. With worth. With a future. Thank you for showing me that was possible. That's why I do this work. That's why I tell my story. That's why I'm sitting here, talking to you, sharing the most painful, humiliating, terrifying experience of my life. Because if it helps even one woman realize she's not alone, if it helps even one woman realize she has options, if it helps even one woman find the courage to save herself, then it's worth it. All of it. Every painful second. So let me leave you with this. A mantra. Something I say to myself every single day. Something I want you to say to yourself if you need it. You are not defined by your relationship status. You are not defined by your bank account. You are not defined by what someone else thinks you're worth. You are defined by your integrity. Your strength. Your resilience. Your ability to stand up, even when everything inside you is screaming to stay down. You are defined by your choices. And you always, always have a choice. It might not be an easy choice. It might not be a comfortable choice. It might not be a choice anyone else understands. But it's yours. And that's what matters. If you're in a relationship where you feel financially dependent, start building your safety net today. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Today. Open an account. Put in $10. $20. Whatever you can. It's not about the amount. It's about the act. It's about reclaiming your power, one small step at a time. And if you're scared, if you're overwhelmed, if you don't know where to start, reach out. To me. To the foundation. To a friend. To a therapist. To anyone who will listen. You don't have to do this alone. You shouldn't do it alone. There are people who want to help. People who understand. People who have been exactly where you are and made it out the other side. And if you're watching this and you're not in that situation, if you're financially independent, if you're secure, if you're safe, I want you to do something too. I want you to look around. Look at the women in your life. Your friends. Your sisters. Your daughters. Your neighbors. Ask them if they're okay. Really okay. Ask them if they know where the money is. Ask them if they have access to the accounts. Ask them if they have a plan. And if they don't, help them build one. Because financial literacy is not just about math. It's about safety. It's about security. It's about freedom. And every woman deserves that. Every single one. I started this story by telling you that being married to a multimillionaire doesn't mean you have any money. I'm ending it by telling you something even more important. Having money doesn't mean you're secure. Real security comes from within. It comes from knowing who you are. Knowing what you're capable of. Knowing that you can survive anything, even if you have to do it alone. That's the security Marcus could never give me. That's the security I had to find myself. And that's the security I want for you. 3 years ago, I was sitting in a laundry room in Aspen, holding documents that would destroy my entire life, wondering if I had the courage to use them. Today, I'm sitting in an office I built, running a foundation I created, helping women I've never met find the same courage I found. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen easily. It happened one choice at a time. One hard conversation. One sleepless night. One moment of terror. One moment of strength. One step forward, even when I wanted to run backward. That's how you build a new life. One choice at a time. And you can do it too. I promise you can. My final thought is this. Clarity comes after chaos. Healing comes after pain. Strength comes after breaking. You cannot become the person you're meant to be without first destroying the person you thought you were supposed to be. That's what happened to me. I thought I was supposed to be the perfect wife. The supportive partner. The woman behind the great man. And I played that role beautifully for 15 years. But that role was killing me. Slowly. Quietly. Completely. It took a catastrophe to break me out of it. It took betrayal and fraud and a federal investigation and a divorce and a media circus and years of therapy. But I broke out. And on the other side, I found myself. The real me. Not the woman Marcus wanted me to be. Not the woman society expected me to be. But the woman I actually am. Strong. Independent. Flawed. Complicated. Real. And I like her. For the first time in my entire life, I actually like who I am. That's what I want for you. I want you to like who you are. Not who your partner wants you to be. Not who your family expects you to be. Not who your friends think you should be. But who you actually are, deep down, when nobody's watching and nobody's judging. That person is worth protecting. That person is worth fighting for. That person deserves security and independence and freedom and joy. And if your current situation doesn't allow for that, if your current relationship doesn't support that, if your current life doesn't reflect that, then it's time to make changes. Hard changes. Scary changes. But necessary changes. Because you deserve better. You've always deserved better. So here's my challenge to you. If you made it this far, if you watched this entire story, you're ready. You're ready for change. You're ready for growth. You're ready for truth. Take action today. Right now. If you're financially dependent, open that account. If you don't know the numbers, ask for them. If you feel trapped, reach out. If you feel scared, talk to someone. If you feel alone, know that you're not. There are thousands of women who have walked this path before you. And we're all here, waiting to help you walk it too. You just have to take the first step. The hardest step. The step that says, I deserve better. And I'm going to fight for it. Tell me in the comments right now, where are you watching this from and what time did you hear this message? I read every single comment. Your story matters to me just as much as mine matters to you. We're in this together. All of us. Building safety nets. Building futures. Building lives we're actually proud of. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think or feel or question or realize something you needed to realize, please hit that like button. It helps this message reach more women who need to hear it. Women who are sitting in their own laundry rooms right now, holding their own envelopes, wondering if they have the courage to open them. Share this video. Send it to a friend. Post it. Talk about it. Because the more we talk about financial dependence, the more we normalize these conversations, the more women we save. And that's what this is all about. Saving each other. One story at a time. Subscribe to DramaCoda. Next week, I'm sharing the story of a woman who discovered her husband was running an illegal prescription drug operation out of their family pharmacy, and how she became a federal informant while pregnant with twins. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. It's a story about courage, survival, and what it really means to protect your family when your family is the danger. Until then, be safe. Be strong. And remember, you are worth fighting for. Always.